So if you're in the iGaming world, you've definitely heard of the Malta Gaming Authority, the MGA, right? Getting their license is basically the industry's Oscar. It is the most prestigious, most respected credential out there. But, and this is a big but, it's also one of the most complex to get. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this gold standard. We're going to deconstruct it and really get into what the official rulebooks don't tell you.
You know, it really does sound like something out of a storybook. A tiny Mediterranean island that just decided to become the global hub of online gaming, and then actually did it. But this wasn't some happy accident. Nope, this was a calculated, strategic masterstroke that started years ago, and it built an entire global industry from a single, really powerful idea.
All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into exactly why Malta is considered the gold standard. Then, we'll look at the different licenses you can get. After that, we'll walk through the pretty intense application process. We'll cover the costs and the key rules you have to live by. And finally, and this is the most important part, we're going to explore all those crucial questions, those unwritten rules that you absolutely have to know about.
So what really gives this license its punch? Well, it all boils down to a rock-solid reputation for stability. One that's been built on a long history of being completely dedicated to this industry.
And that consistency is everything. Look at this timeline. Malta didn't just write some rules back in 2004 and call it a day. They got a massive head start, becoming the very first EU member to regulate online gaming. They built partnerships with other regulators, and then in 2018, they completely revamped their entire framework to keep it modern. So this isn't some dusty, old license. It's an evolving standard of excellence.
And the result of that long-term vision, it's just staggering. We're talking about an industry that pulls in nearly 3 billion euros a year. Think about that. This isn't just some small market on the island. It's a fundamental pillar of their entire national economy. And for you, as a licensee, that means incredible government support and stability.
And just look at this impact. A huge chunk of the country's GDP comes from gaming, and it supports over 11,000 jobs. So when you apply for an MGA license, you're not just talking to a regulator. You're plugging into this whole mature ecosystem. Law firms, tech companies, banks, all laser-focused on gaming.
Okay, let's get into the first big decision you have to make, and it really all comes down to one simple question: who is your customer?
The MGA made this super simple. Are you running an online casino or a sports book that deals directly with players? Easy. You need a B2C license. Or are you one of the tech wizards behind the scenes, building the games, the platforms, the random number generators? Well, then you're a supplier, and you need a B2B license. Simple as that. And if you're going the B2C route, it gets even more specific. Type 1 is for your classic casino games, slots, lotteries, that kind of thing. Type 2 is for sports betting. Type 3 covers peer-to-peer games like poker and bingo. And Type 4 is for controlled skill games like fantasy sports. The best part? You can actually hold several of these types under a single license, which gives you a ton of flexibility to grow. Okay, so you've picked your license. Now for the tough part. Getting approved isn't just about filling out a form and sending a check. Oh no, it is a comprehensive, multi-stage journey, a true gauntlet that's designed to weed out anyone who isn't 100% serious and totally compliant. So here's what that journey looks like from a 30,000-foot view. First, you prepare an absolute mountain of documents. Then, the MGA does a deep dive background check on you and your whole team. They pick apart your business plan, your financial projections, your entire tech stack gets audited. And only after you pass every single one of those gates do they issue the license. Now this fit and proper test is absolutely critical. The MGA needs to know who you are, where every cent of your funding comes from, and that you actually have the chops to run a compliant business. They'll work with international law enforcement to check you out. So let me be clear, full transparency here isn't just a good idea, it's the absolute price of entry. And this idea of the key function holder just shows you how deep that accountability goes. See, it's not just the company getting the license, it's the key people inside it. Your CEO, your anti-money laundering officer, your data protection officer, they all have to be personally vetted and approved by the MGA. The buck literally stops with them.
All right, let's talk about the money and the rules. The MGA license is a huge badge of honor, and that prestige comes with some pretty significant financial and regulatory commitments. But first, let's talk about the biggest financial perk. You might see a headline corporate tax rate of 35% in Malta, but because of their tax refund system, the effective tax rate on the profits you distribute can drop as low as 5%. That is one of the most competitive tax rates in the entire European Union. It's a huge deal.
Now for the fees themselves. You've got a one-time application fee of 5 grand. The annual fees start around 25,000 euros. And you have to meet minimum share capital requirements. We're talking up to 100,000 euros for the most common B2C licenses. So yeah, this isn't a budget option. It's a serious investment in credibility.
And that investment continues every single day through some very strict operating rules. You have to keep a live, forensic-ready copy of your key databases physically located in Malta. Player money must always be kept separate from company money. Your games have to be fair, with at least an 85% return to player. And you are on the front lines of fighting money laundering. These rules, absolutely non-negotiable.
Okay, so we've covered the official stuff, but this is where we really get to the heart of it. The biggest challenges aren't in the rulebook. They're hidden in the unwritten rules, the gray areas, and the procedural gaps. So let's dive into the critical questions you should be asking.
This one's for all you B2B tech suppliers out there. The MGA says you need certified random number generators and secure systems. Okay, great. But what are the exact technical standards for API security? What is the official step-by-step process for getting a new game pre-certified for use in Malta? The high-level rules exist, but that detailed technical playbook just isn't public.
Here's a question that probably keeps a lot of operators up at night. The MGA will publish when it takes action, but it doesn't publish a clear, detailed guide on how it makes those decisions. At what specific point does a compliance slip-up turn into a massive fine? What's the threshold that could actually trigger a full license cancellation? That ambiguity creates a huge amount of business risk.
Now, this is a crucial one for established businesses. The law says an existing EU company can apply, but what is the actual administrative roadmap for doing that? How does the process of moving your entire company to Malta, what's called redomiciling, actually differ from just starting a brand new company there from scratch? The specific steps, the documents, the tax implications, it's not clearly laid out.
Everybody knows you have to be GDPR compliant. That's a given. But what does the MGA specifically expect from you when something goes wrong? What's their required protocol if you have a data breach? Or how do they expect you to handle data transfers with the UK now that Brexit has happened? It's easy to say, be compliant, but the MGA's specific expectations in these critical scenarios aren't well defined.
Malta branded itself as Blockchain Island. And yes, you can accept crypto payments under their license. But the big question is, how exactly? The policy says you have to use licensed virtual financial asset agents and have stronger anti-money laundering controls. But what's the practical, step-by-step guide for actually integrating a crypto wallet, getting the right audits signed off, and managing that relationship? That whole roadmap is basically a black box.
And that brings us to the most important takeaway here. The MGA license is, without a single doubt, the absolute gold standard of the iGaming industry. It signals trust, security, and prestige to the entire world. But getting it, and more importantly keeping it, means you have to successfully navigate this complex world of unwritten rules and fuzzy procedures. The real test isn't just meeting the requirements you can read in a book, it's being ready for the ones you can't.